Trouble with Water, Episode 1. It was the first day of the fishing season, and because of the heavy demands of Greenberg's job as a concessionaire, it was likely also the last day that he would be able to fish, if everything went as it usually did. He had many pressures to deal with in his life. So this day of total relaxation meant a lot to him. But, as we shall see, it did not turn out as he hoped.
Greenberg did not deserve his surroundings. He was the first fisherman of the season, which guaranteed him a fine catch. He sat in a boat far out on the lake. The sun was warm, the air was cool. Any other man would have soaked with joy to be fishing on such a splendid day. Normally, Greenberg himself would have been ecstatic, but instead of relaxing and waiting for a nibble, he was plagued by worries. During the summer, he lived in a hotel in Rockaway, New York. Winters, he lived in a hotel in Florida. And in both places, he operated concessions. For many years now, he felt sure that rain had fallen on schedule every weekend, and there had been storms and floods on major holidays. He closed his eyes and groaned. If only he had a son instead of his daughter Rosie, then things would have been mighty different. For one thing, a son could run the hot dog and hamburger griddle. There would be small difference in the profits, but at least those profits could be put aside for old age instead of toward a dowry for his miserably ugly, dumpy, pitifully eager Rosie. Greenberg recalled the many arguments he had had with his wife, Esther. She would always insist that every penny they didn't need for living should go to Rosie's dowry. Greenberg didn't hate his daughter, nor did he blame her for his misfortunes. Yet because of her, he was fishing with a broken rod that he had to tape together. He recalled the argument they had had that morning. Speaking in a conversational tone was not one of her accomplishments.
Go ahead, go fishing, you loafer. Leave me here alone. I can connect the beer pipes and the gas for soda water. I can buy ice cream, frankfurters, rolls, syrup, and watch the gas and electric man at the same time. Go ahead, go fishing.
I ordered everything. The gas and electric won't be turned on today. I only wanted to go fishing. It's my last chance. Tomorrow we open the concession. Tell the truth, Esther. Can I go fishing after we open?
I don't care about that. Am I your wife or ain't I? That you should go ordering everything without asking me.
He had defended his actions, but that had been a tactical mistake. While she was still in bed, he should have picked up his equipment and left. By the time the argument got around to Rosie's dowry, she stood facing him.
For myself, I don't care. What kind of a monster are you that you can go fishing while your daughter eats her heart out? And on a day like this yet, you should only have to make supper and dress Rosie up. A lot you care that a nice boy is coming to supper tonight and maybe take Rosie out. You no good father, you.
From that point on, it was one hot protest and a shrill curse to find himself clutching half a broken rod with the other half being flung at his head. Now he sat in his beautifully dry boat on an excellent game lake far out on Long Island, desperately aware that any average fish might collapse his taped rod. But since morning, not a fish had struck at the bait, not a single fish, and it was getting late. He had no more patience. He ripped the cap off a bottle of beer and drank it in order to gain courage to change his fly for a less sporting bloodworm. It hurt him, but he wanted to fish. The hook and worm sank. Before it came to rest, he felt a nibble. He reeled in slowly and prayed.
Oh Lord, $1 for charity. Just don't let the rod bend in half where I taped it.
It was sagging dangerously. He looked at it unhappily and raised his ante to $5. He dipped his rod into the water, parallel with the line, to remove the strain. He was glad no one could see him do it. The line reeled in without a fight.
Have I, God forbid, got an eel or something not kosher? A plague on you. Why don't you fight?
Greenberg pulled in a long, pointed, brimless green hat. For a moment he glared at it. Then viciously he yanked the hat off the hook, threw it on the floor, and trampled on it.
All day I fish. $2 for train fare, $1 for a boat, a quarter for bait, a new rod I got to buy, and a $5 mortgage charity has got on me. For what? For a lousy green hat.
Out in the water, an extremely civil, polite voice asked politely,
May I have my hat, please?
What the hell is this? A little man swimming toward me. Look at that. His arms are crossed with such enormous dignity. And look at those enormous ears and that pointed face.
May I have my hat, please? You are stomping on my hat.
With the ears you're swimming. Do you look funny?
How else could I swim?
With the arms and legs like a regular human being, of course.
But I am not a human being. I am a water gnome, a relative of more common mining gnome. I cannot swim with my arms because they must be crossed to give an appearance of dignity suitable to a water gnome. And my feet are used for riding and holding things. On the other hand, my ears are perfectly adapted for propulsion in water. Consequently, I employ them for that purpose. But please, my hat, there are several matters requiring my immediate attention, and I must not waste time.
What you got that's so important to do, big ears?
The gnome was not offended.
I really must hurry, but I have to answer your question in order to get my hat. We are engaged in restocking the eastern waters with fish. Last year, there was quite a drain. The Bureau of Fisheries is cooperating with us to some extent, but of course we cannot depend on them too much. Until the propulsion rises to normal, every fish has instructions not to nibble. My main work is control of the rainfall over the eastern seaboard. Our fact-finding committee, which is scientifically situated in the meteorological center of the continent, coordinates the rainfall needs of the entire continent. And when they determine the amount of rain needed in particular spots of the east, I make it rain to that extent. Now, may I have my hat, please?
Huh. The first lie was big enough about telling the fish not to bite. You make it rain like I'm the President of the United States. How's about proof?
Certainly, if you insist. Watch that bit of the sky.
Greenberg looked up humorously. Even when a small dark cloud rapidly formed in the previously clear spot, his grin remained broad. It could have been coincidental, but then large drops of undeniable rain fell over a 20-foot circle, and Greenberg's mocking grin shrank and grew sour. He glared hatred at the gnome, finally convinced.
So you're the dirty crook who makes it rain on weekends.
Usually on weekends during the summer. 92% of water consumption is on weekdays. Obviously, we must replace that water. The weekends, of course, are the logical time.
But you thief, you murderer, what do you care what you do to my concession with your rain? It ain't bad enough business would be rotten even without rain. You got to make floods.
I'm sorry. We do not create rainfall for the benefit of men. We are here to protect the fish. Now, give me my hat. I have wasted enough time when I should be preparing the extremely heavy rain needed for this coming weekend.
Rain this weekend, when I can maybe make a profit for a change. A lot you care if you ruin business. May you and your fish die a horrible, lingering death.
Greenberg furiously ripped the green hat to pieces and hurled them at the gnome.
I'm really sorry you shredded my hat. We little folk have no tempers to lose. Nevertheless, occasionally we find it necessary to discipline certain of your people in order to retain our dignity. I am not malignant, but since you hate water and those who live in it, water and those who live in it will keep away from you.
With his arms still folded with great dignity, the tiny water gnome flipped his vast ears and disappeared in a neat surface dive.
Goodbye weekend business. If Esther finds out I got into an argument with the guy who makes it rain.
Greenberg made an underhand cast, hoping for just one fish. The line flew out over the water. Then the hook arched upward and came to rest several inches above the water, hanging quite steadily and without support in the air.
Well, go down in the water, damn you.
Muttering something incoherent about being hanged before he'd give in, Greenberg hurled his useless rod at the water. By this time, he was not surprised when it hovered in the air above the lake. He merely glanced, red-eyed, at it, tossed out the remains of the gnome's hat, and snatched up the oars. When he pulled back on them to row to land, they did not touch the water, naturally.
Aha, here's where the trouble begins.
He bent over the side. As he had suspected, the keel floated a remarkable distance above the lake. By rowing against the air, he moved with maddening slowness toward shore. Back at the hotel, he tried to sneak past the kitchen to the bathroom. If he could dress in a hurry for the dinner with Rosie's visitor, Esther might have less to say.
Oh, there you are, you good-for-nothing. Look at you, filthy, you stink from fish.
I didn't catch anything, darling.
You stink anyhow. Go take a bath. May you drown in it. Get dressed in 2 minutes or less, and entertain the boy when he gets here. Hurry.
He locked himself in, happy to escape her voice, and started the water in the tub. A hot bath, he hoped, would rid him of his depressed feeling. First, no fish. Now, rain on weekends. What would Esther say? If she knew, of course. And of course, he would not tell her.
Let myself in for a lifetime of curses. Huh. Herman Greenberg never gives in. Rain on weekends. No fish. Anything he wants. A lot I care. Believe me, he'll come crawling to me before I go to him. What? My shaving brush is not getting wet. The water's dividing into streams that flow around it. What do I do now? Will Esther give it to me if I don't take a shave? But how? I can't shave without water.
Greenberg stepped into the tub. The water, in one surge of revulsion, swept out onto the floor.
Herman, stop splashing. I just washed that floor. If I find one little puddle, I'll murder you.
Greenberg surveyed the instep-deep pool over the bathroom floor.
Yes, my love.
With an inadequate wash rag, he chased the elusive water, hoping to mop it all up before it could seep through into the apartment below. His wash rag remained dry, and he knew that the ceiling underneath was dripping. In despair, he sat on the edge of the bathtub. For some time, he sat in silence. Then his wife banged on the door, urging him to come out. When he sneaked out and shut the bathroom door on the flood inside, his face was raw, where he had experimentally attempted to shave with a dry razor. His daughter sat on the studio couch and applied nail polish to her stubby fingers.
Rosie, shh. Where's Mama?
You look terrible. Aren't you going to shave?
Quiet, Rosie. Shh. Rosie, I'll give you $1 if you'll mop up the water I spilled in the bathroom.
I can't, Papa. I'm all dressed.
$2, Rosie. All right, 2.5, you blackmailer.
He flinched when he heard her gasp in the bathroom. But when she came out with soaked shoes, he fled downstairs. He wandered aimlessly toward the village. Rubbing the tender spots where his razor had raked his face, he mused blankly at the drugstore window. He saw nothing to help him, but he went inside anyway and stood hopefully at the drug counter. The druggist, a nice-looking, intelligent fellow, came out.
What have you got for shaving that I can use without water? My face is a wreck. Shaving it dry.
Skin irritation, eh? I got something very good for that.
No, it's just, well, I don't like to shave with water.
Well, I got brushless shaving cream, but I got an electric razor, much better.
How much?
Only $90, and it lasts a lifetime.
Give me the shaving cream.
It was after 7 when he got back to the hotel. He was getting hungry, and the people who entered the hotel he knew as permanent summer guests. At last, a stranger passed him and went up the stairs. Greenberg hesitated for a moment and then jauntily ran up behind him. He allowed a few minutes to pass for the man to introduce himself and let Esther and Rosie don their company manners. Then, secure in the knowledge that there would be no scene until the guests left, he entered. He waded through a hostile atmosphere, urbanely shook hands with Sammy Katz, who he learned was a young doctor, and excused himself. In the bathroom, he tried the new shaving cream, but ended up with a sticky towel and whiskers suspended in paste. And there would be no more hell to pay. And there would be more hell to pay. He shrugged resignedly. They were waiting for him before beginning supper, which he knew was only a gesture for the sake of company. Without changing her hard, brilliant smile, Esther whispered to him,
Wait, I'll get you later.
You open an office yet, Dr. Katz?
Not yet. You know how things are. Anyhow, call me Sammy.
Greenberg recognized the gambit with satisfaction, since it seemed to please Esther so much. At one stroke, Sammy had ingratiated himself and begun bargaining negotiations. Without another word, Greenberg lifted his spoon. In the proper company way, he pushed his spoon away from him toward the soup. The soup spilled onto the tablecloth.
Not so hard, you dope.
He drew the spoon toward him. The soup leaped off it like a live thing and splashed over him and fell on the floor. He pushes the bowl away, and this time the soup poured over the side of the plate and lay in a huge puddle on the table.
I didn't want any soup anyhow.
Greenberg lapsed into a paralysis of fear. The knowledge that he could not touch water without having it recoil, made his thirst a monumental craving. The others were talking rather hysterically. He waited until his courage was equal to his thirst. Then he leaned over the table with a glass in his hand.
Sammy, do you mind? A little water, huh?
Sammy poured from a pitcher, but is shocked when the water exploded out of the glass directly at Sammy's only suit.
If you'll excuse me, I don't like to eat with lunatics.
And he left. Though Esther cried and begged him to stay, Rosie was too stunned to move. But when the door closed, Greenberg raised his agonized eyes to watch his wife stalk murderously toward him. The end of episode 1 of Trouble with Water.